Ms. Duden, let's start with you. The drought has caused a lot of problems in my home state of Utah. You know, as is happening in some other places, but to a pretty acute degree in Utah, ranchers are delaying putting livestock on the range. Growth has, of course, been impacted by water uncertainty, and a lot of local economies are being stretched thin by virtue of their inability to access some Bureau assets like Lake Powell. I'd really appreciate some of the recent decisions made by the Bureau of Reclamation to boost water levels at Lake Powell, including, of course, the release of 500,000 acre-feet from Flaming Gorge Reservoir and the withholding of an additional 480,000 acre-feet from release downriver from Lake Powell. What can you tell me about the Bureau's priorities moving forward as they relate to water levels at Lake Powell?
Thank you, Senator, and good morning. We have a great partnership with the state of Utah. Gene Shawcroft is one of the principals we work with the basin states. What we're prioritizing right now is really short term. What actions to make up that 2 to 4 million acre feet in the basin to help protect Lake Mead and Lake Powell? Because all of the actions that you mentioned, the nearly 1 million acre feet that we did this year, buys us a year. And we cannot be in the same place next year where we're talking about critical levels to protect Power Pool. So we are spending significant amount of time. This is the priority for us between the next 60 days to figure out a plan to close that gap.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. O'Toole, I've done a lot of work on NEPA reform, policy reforms in the NEPA space, because I agree with you. These are essential to making sure we can do what we need to do. As I've engaged in that effort, it's become apparent that some members of Congress resist changes to NEPA, and their responses are usually kind of interesting. They include some variation of the argument that, we don't need to do this because the agencies already have authority to do this through their own existing rulemaking procedures. It's an interesting argument to make, especially because regardless of what they've got in mind and regardless of the fact that they may have tools at their disposal to do it, they don't, because things don't change in this regard. I think in many instances they're debilitated by a fear of litigation, and that obsessive fear of litigation, while understandable, makes it very, very unlikely that they impose these limitations on themselves. So what do you believe Congress needs to do in order to break the logjam with regard to NEPA? Thank you, sir.
Categorical exclusion is another part of that NEPA process, which gives flexibility to the agencies. The river that I live on crosses the state line 32 times. That means that our valley is both Colorado and Wyoming. So I'm in 2 forests, 2 BLMs, 2 game and fish, 2 fish and wildlife, and have a lot of experience with the agencies. It is human-driven, and there was a fear of failure or fear now, as I expressed earlier, the agency people need to have a mission, and we're going to have to send a message. We've sent money. There's money in the infrastructure bill to achieve, but that isn't going to be achieved if we don't have a mission to use the tools. And I think that, my personal experience is, I have the best conservation district in the U.S. I really am so lucky. Just give you an example, 17% of farmers use it, and ours it's 90%, because we have trust built. We use categorical exclusion. The surrounding conservation districts are coming to us asking for, how do you get that done? Because you don't have the agency people who have experience with it, and because of the litigation issue that you mentioned, that I've mentioned, it's really inhibiting our ability to do what we've all agreed we need to do.
Drought data collection has become a point of emphasis by some federal agencies in recent years. Some proposals would go so far as to use satellites to quantify evaporation and also quantify evaporative or consumptive use in addition to evaporation. I've heard some concerns raised by some agricultural producers that overly intrusive monitoring, while it has some potential to help, could also create other problems, could lead to burdensome regulation of private water resources. Do you share those concerns, and do you feel there are protections that could be offered to agricultural producers to help protect their interests while also allowing for greater data collection?
Well, I'm a big fan of data and science, but I will tell you, my new friend, Mr. Hall, is in a process of negotiation with the Family Farm Alliance over the open ET issues because of the potential for misuse of the data. And we want data. I want data to do the right thing, but we've got to have some protection because, as you all know, farmers seem to be described as a monolith. We're individual businesses of families mostly, and we can't stand the vulnerability of litigation. I've had it happen to me on a situation where we won finally because the state of Wyoming on bighorn sheep defended us using the Forest Service. But an individual is so vulnerable. And one thing we never talk about, bankers don't care about conservation. They don't care about these issues. They care about getting paid. And when one individual producer sort of gets demonized because of the use of data, we want to make sure that that's done in a way that there's protections for those individual family producers.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Senator